Welcome to the latest of my deep dive videos. Today I'm going to explore the total lunar eclipse, which occurs on the 13th or the 14th of March, depending on location, and provides a backdrop energy for the next 6 months. But the first in this series occurred on the 18th of September last year, and was in the sign of Pisces, but was very close to the shimmering, mesmeric, but potentially distorting energies of Neptune. Now this total lunar eclipse is confronted by the cool, detached, and potentially oppressive energies of Saturn. So what can we expect over the next half year, the period of influence? So I'm going to take you back briefly to the 18th of September last year, share the event chart with you so you can see how the astrology has played out in our collective experience from then until now, because this event is the mirror of that first eclipse. We also have a partial solar eclipse on the 29th of March in Aries later this month. That's the final one in a series between the signs of Aries and Libra. But we have to weave this event into that because they're both going to play out over the next 6 months. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundel. I'm going to unpack all of this for you, share the event charts, but I'm also going to give you a sense of how it will be for each of the 12 zodiac signs during this next half year. If you're new to my channel, it's lovely to have your company. We're very much a community. If you have any thoughts, please share them. All your views and interactions are truly appreciated. If you've yet to subscribe, please help the channel to thrive and do so. But also, please do click or tap the bell notification symbol. I have a new website that's launched. There's lots of very, very good content to share with you. And also a lot of free content too. You can get your free birth chart. It's the best out there in my humble opinion. Or you can get your free tarot reading. Or you can sign up for your free daily horoscope fired to your device each morning. Or you can also sign up for your free daily moon forecast based on your personal birth data. Please go to www.patrickarundel.com for more information. And finally, I'm a consultant astrologer. If you'd like to work with me one-to-one, please check out my testimonials below. And also I have a new service. You can have a video reading from me. You can ask 2 questions, have a year's forecast, or if you've got an upcoming birthday, your solar return. And it's all sent to you with all the information, and you can watch it in your own time and get the benefit of working with me, but in a more direct way. Please see the link below for more. So this total Virgo lunar eclipse occurs at 23 degrees and 58 minutes in the sign of Virgo, which means the sun is very close to Saturn on the other side of the heavens in Pisces. Now, of course, we also have a full moon, and that full moon precedes this eclipse by 5 minutes. But in terms of the exact timings of the eclipse, on the screen now, you can see where it is in your part of the world. So it's just LA where the eclipse occurs on the 13th. Now, in terms of the full moon, that is also known as a worm moon, because in the northern hemisphere, we're obviously going into the spring. But I'm very respectful that in the southern hemisphere, you're going very much into the autumn. But let's just think about what eclipses essentially are. They're a mirror for the nodal switch. So if you recall, the north and south nodes, the true nodes, moved on the 11th of January. Because the whole moon cycle takes about 18.6 years, mirrored by the cycle of the nodes as well. And that first one, which occurred on the 18th of September last year, was, as I mentioned, in the sign of Pisces, but very close to Neptune. So let's have a look and see what was going on then. So on the screen now, I'm showing the event chart based on the prime meridian and universal time for the 18th of September. The big takeouts, the ascendant is in Leo at 24 degrees. Where's Uranus, the planet of disruption? It's right at the top of the chart. The 10th house is our collective experience in terms of our public interaction. And let's be honest, it's been absolutely chaotic. There's been so much change just in that last half year. Now also, because the ascendant is squaring with Uranus, how we may want to connect to the world is being challenged by events that may feel to be beyond our control. And of course, the 10th house can be about power, it can be about authority, but big changes seem to be going at the speed of light. The other takeouts, Neptune, as I mentioned before, very, very close to the moon in the 8th house. The 8th house is where we're most invested, but it can be where we're most connected, but it can be where things evolve. It's about transformation. So a lot of confusion around long-term finances for a lot of people, not least because of AI and robotics, automation, the effect all of that's having upon us. But also, we need to be mindful that Neptune can be about distortion. So our emotional world has felt very, to me, distorted. But the other big takeout for me is that Saturn, which is very powerful on this eclipse, is actually in an opposition with Mercury across the 2nd and 8th houses. Now, we've seen some very trenchant views expressed, particularly around trade. And Saturn and Mercury being in an opposition is where people can be very unyielding, very unbending in terms of saying how they feel. Now, Mercury was obviously domiciled on that event, so in some ways that pushes back against some of the distortion of Neptune because it can be about precision. So we're being asked to be much more careful with our resources, but it was in an opposition with Saturn. So I think the different values people have had have been starkly obvious in terms of polarities. So where people see things differently, it really has shone out in a powerful way. The other big aspect on this event is Mars in the sign of Cancer, where it of course is in its full, is in the 11th house of the collective, but it's in a T-square with the nodal axis, which at that time was the north in Aries, the south in Libra. So that is a very disruptive influence too. So essentially the big takeout from that eclipse, the first in the series, was confusion around finance, a lot of forceful opinion, a lot of energy expressed around territory, because the sign of Cancer is about land, and Mars, of course, is a very reactive and a very feisty influence, but it can be a very emotional influence, but not necessarily an influence in Cancer that acts in the best of ways. So we've got a number of very tense energies playing out in that event. In a more positive way, I guess you could say the Sun, Uranus and Pluto are in a ground Earth trine. And because the Sun's in the 2nd house, foundations, Pluto's in the 6th house, work, but also service, they're linking back to Uranus in the 10th house. We're seeing that there is a huge shift going on, particularly in terms of governmental employment in America, and that's all been playing out in a very dramatic, unexpected, but not necessarily easy way. So I feel our sense of security and stability and how we link to one another in terms of our values, that's the area that really has been challenged by that lunar eclipse. And because of Neptune being so close to the moon, it's rather like the moon card in the tarot. We have had a lot of uncertainty, and it's been very difficult to find a point in a lot of the discussions or the news briefings that gives us a sense of security or nurture. It's been a shifting mist of loads of knowledge being exchanged, but is it always accurate knowledge or information or points of view? So a lot of distortion. So how does that play out for you? That is exactly what that chart predicted. How do you see it? Do you see it differently to me? But I feel the trenchant opinions, people finding it very difficult to agree, the polarization, Mercury opposite Saturn, and being very direct, blunt, almost aggressive about expressing points of view, which doesn't create an atmosphere of tolerance. It creates an atmosphere of mistrust and a kind of unpleasantness, really, in some of the tone that has been used. So that Mercury opposite Saturn's there. The confusion for sure is there with Neptune and the Moon together. But we also have that Mars influence, T-square, and the nodal axis. Because the sign of Aries really, and that's why this final solar eclipse is intriguing, that's going to occur at 8 degrees Aries on the 29th of this month, because it's the first without the support of the North Node. We still have Chiron in Aries, but that period was about reminding us of the need to stay in touch with what we need as individuals. The sign of Pisces, where the North Node is inversed into, can be about sacrifice, it can be about compassion, it can be about being of service to people who may be less fortunate. But why have we got so much discussion and point of views developing where the whole concept of empathy is almost being politicized, whereas really what we all need for all of our lives is balance? It's not about left and right, it's not about male and female, it's about trying to find a balance. And without balance we get very extreme attitudes, and they will have a price to pay. And the next 6 months is going to see how it will play out because of the steely cold energies of Saturn, the ultimate planet of consequences, but also the planet of karma, coming to the end of its journey in the sign of Pisces. Obviously it goes into Aries for 3 months from the 26th of May, 3 months and 7 days, but it's going to go back into Pisces from September through to early next year, and that is going to be a huge time for person kind. So on the screen now I'm showing the event chart on this lunar eclipse. You can see the moon is at 23 degrees and 58, so it's just beyond the position of the full moon. So if you have any personal planets between around about 22 degrees and about 26 degrees in any of the mutable signs, you're going to feel this very keenly indeed. So the mutable signs are Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius and Pisces itself. So if you have degrees, anything from 22 to about 25, you will feel this very keenly indeed. So in terms of the prime meridian, you can see that Saturn is just under 2 degrees away from the position of the Sun, facing back across the heavens. But look, we also have the North Node, the South Node, the nodal axis in the mix, and a little more distant the position of Neptune, just on the anaretic degree, preparing to go into the sign of Aries on the 30th of March. And I will do a special video on that shortly. But the big takeout is that Saturn is in the 12th house as well as being in the 12th sign. So I feel what we're going to see is a lot of psychological impact, and it's not, I don't feel, going to be very pleasant. The 12th house can be about secrets, but Saturn can be about authority, and it can be about control, and it can be about power. And power is going to be invested and is being invested in some ways to either keep some people quiet It depends on where you live in the world, but repression would be a definite theme from this particular eclipse. But also we could see a big dismantling of public health services, which I think we have seen some signs of. Now, whether it's to do with the practical side of the auditing, the organisation, the administrative side, or it is to do with things like vaccinations and care programs in the field. If we think of the sign of Pisces, it's about the psychological, emotional and spiritual dimension. The sign of Virgo is about the details, making sure that everything's well organised. It's also about our physical well-being. It's about our attitude to diet, nutrition and exercise. So in a very positive way, one of the things that can come from this eclipse is a bigger push for people to take more personal responsibility for their welfare. And that's a good thing. And that's what I mean about balance. If we can promote a positive message to get an outcome which is better for people, and we can see that our physical health feeds into our mental health, that's a great way to work with this particular eclipse. But if we have the deconstruction of services, which is ruled by Virgo, in a way which has an impact on people, but people don't really see what's coming because maybe the message in some ways is what they're caught up in, we have got a big shift going on. And that's a shift that is rather concerning, particularly around public health, because Mars, the planet of passion, drive, assertion, but impatience, feistiness, can be to do with war, it can be to do with intolerance. It's in a very reactive sign still of Cancer, but it's squaring up with Chiron in the first house and the first sign, our physical being, the body. So just be conscious that it's important to understand that I feel a public health crisis, maybe not on the scale of COVID, but I feel a public health crisis is entirely possible over the next 6 months. And it doesn't have to be located just in a Western developed country. It could be in a developing nation. And particularly if funding at some level has been reduced in terms of things like inoculations. So what we're buying into will have consequences, and Saturn suggests repression of energy, but also repression of spirit. So in the 12th house, that's going to be a limitation of our sense of well-being in a psychological way, in my humble opinion. Now, we do have some strengths in this chart. You can see that Venus and Mercury are coming into a conjunction. It will be exact on the 11th. Venus, of course, is detrimented and it is in retrograde, but they can be helpful. But Venus in the 12th house can also make us quite melancholy and thinking about what we used to have that we no longer have. And Mercury in the 12th house, even though it's no longer in Pisces, where it was incredibly affected by Neptune, and we saw that with a lot of information that was being claimed to be accurate, was just completely not true. And that distortion is not good for us all. We're much better to work from facts rather than opinions. So although Venus and Mercury together can be fortunate within themselves, they're still compromised by being in the 12th house. And we need to be aware of that. So I think the big takeout from this eclipse is that we need to dig down and understand what's really meant. And we also need to be aware that the need to balance the ins and outgoings in our own situation. So if we eat well and exercise well, and eating well doesn't mean eating expensively, it means eating stuff that's cooked from scratch. If we can buy ingredients locally, not necessarily any more expensive. If you've got the budget and can get organic, fine. But if we're eating stuff that's absolutely crammed full with different emulsifiers and various flavorings and colorings and artificial enhancers and all the rest of it, that's not good for us. So we have an opportunity with this lunar eclipse to take a lot more responsibility for ourselves. But that good health and exercise then feeds into how we feel. But unfortunately, because Saturn is coming through the end of its 29.5-year cycle, we're getting a big payback for a lot of stuff that hasn't quite been right for a long time. That's the karma of Saturn, and that's not going to be easy. So I feel that this is going to be a very challenging period, the next 6 months. But a lot of things that have been claimed are going to be found to not have been factually correct. And what Saturn will do is bring scrutinization. So we will see more information come into the open that hasn't been shared in a rightful and accurate way. Virgo, accuracy, precision. It's all about making sure that things work in a very calibrated and very systematic, detailed, organized, but well-drilled way. So sentiments and ideas which can be steering policies will have an outcome, and those outcomes are going to be felt in a very, very strong way. Because remember, the 12th house is the sector in traditional astrology of secrets, but also secret enemies. So a lot of information, because that's the currency that is used these days to control us, essentially, a lot of information could be used in a nefarious way. So we need to all be mindful of that and make sure we work with that Virgoan energy to demand that things are well drilled, they are meticulous, that we get the full facts so we can make the best of decisions. But don't necessarily expect that to occur, because with Neptune still very close to that North Node, we are still in a time of intense smoke and mirrors. Please stay with me as I go through each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces. Please check out my new website at www.patrickarundel.com. There's loads of brilliant new content, but you can also get your free daily horoscope fired to your device. You can get your free natal birth chart, the best there is out there. Your free tarot reading, it's absolutely incredible. But also your daily free moon reading too. Please see the link below for more. To work with me directly, I'm a consulting astrologer. Please see my testimonials below, or take advantage of my video readings, which give you an opportunity to work directly with me, but I will send the sealed video reading to you, so you don't need to be present. They're less expensive. Please see the link below for more. So Aries, the next 6 months for you with this total lunar eclipse are going to be very much about a reflective. Now that's interesting because of course you've got the total solar eclipse coming in your sign on the 29th of March, which can be about the here and now. But you need a two-pronged approach in a way. If you're someone who has, you feel, really wound up a big slice of your life over the last couple of years, with Saturn in your 12th house, and really come to terms with some parts of your situation which are no longer part of your present, you can really be at peace with this event, and it can just encourage you in some ways to make sure that you do prioritize over the next half year times of complete quiet, solitude and rest, which is what the 12th house can be about. Very much the sector of psychological healing. But of course the moon itself is in your 6th house, which is about the practical sphere. And if you're in any kind of part of your life, whether it's professionally, in terms of the domestic sphere, whether it's around relationships or around your personal well-being, where you feel that you're quite weighed down with the demands and needs of others, this particular eclipse is asking you to put your everyday needs first. So grappling with that 6th house energy, bringing a little bit more organisation, letting go of some approaches which perhaps aren't so good for you, maybe around your health, releasing situations that don't serve your greater good. Now sometimes the things we need to release with the 12th house energies of the Sun and Saturn are people who aren't necessarily good for us. And it's not necessarily people who are outright hostile. It may be people who just energetically drain us. So for example, if you work somewhere where you like the place, you like the people, but it just feels for whatever reason it's not the perfect fit for you, do look for another opportunity, because it's important to be in touch with that more sensitive strand. Sometimes the things that affect us the most are the unspoken parts of life. Energy. So if energy around you feels stale, limiting, psychologically depleting, if you have felt in any way not 100% as strong as you would like over the last 6 months, this is definitely a time to take even more care over what you're eating and drinking, the amount of exercise you're getting, to make sure that you can bring a more virtuous vibe to your life. But you've got to do it when perhaps your drive could be lower than usual, because Saturn applying to the Sun in your 12th house is like trying to drive a car not just with the handbrake on, but probably with even more resistance than that. So you're only going to have a certain amount of vitality, certain amount of time, and what the eclipse energy is encouraging you to do is to use what you have got in a very applied way. And that may mean letting go of some things that it could be some things that you enjoy that create a little bit of escapism. It may be sitting on the sofa and gorging on some box series, but not really being quite as active as you could be. It may be in some ways letting some fears or inhibitions prevent you from going to a gym and joining in. Perhaps it's to do with body image issues. Stuff like this can all come to the fore on this 6-month period. The great news is that if you do have any planets in the first 10 degrees of the sign of Aries, the fact that Venus and Mercury are quite close by is really encouraging you to take the initiative. But sometimes 12th house energy, where Saturn and the Sun, North Node, Neptune are, and in terms of the event chart, Venus and Mercury, can be about fear. If your fear is preventing you from changing some practical elements of your situation, this is a time to confront that, especially if you're, say, not wanting to leave a job because it may not be ideal, but you're concerned about what might be out there. Absolutely, totally understandable. But what you can do is give yourself some options. You can apply for jobs. You don't have to accept them. And it's through going through the process and engaging with the people there, you can check out whether that energetic exchange really works for you or not. So particularly through to the solar eclipse at the end of March, you do need to be busy, really active in trying to release and let go and rinse out from your body what's no longer working. So this would be a great time to do a cleanse, to be honest. But that will go on from the time of the solar eclipse, but I just feel you get more opportunity to steer that in a more direct way, a more classically Aries way. You could feel a little bit on the horns of a dilemma with this particular lunar eclipse at times, unless you do take control of the situation, because remember, Saturn and the Sun in the 12th house, along with Neptune, suggest that if you're passive, someone else could make moves which aren't necessarily for your best interest. Please check out my new website at patrickarundel.com. There's loads of goodies, a brilliant free birth chart. You won't get a better one anywhere, in my humble opinion. You can sign up for your free daily written horoscope fired to your device each day. You can get your free tarot. It's an amazing free tarot. Or also sign up for your free daily moon horoscope. Please go to www.patrickarundel.com. So Taurus, this lunar eclipse for you, the moon, occurs in the part of your situation to do with joy. The expression of talents is where we may appreciate our children if we have them, or want to have a child come into our world, because the 5th house, very much about children. Can also be the sector of deep romantic love. The 7th house, much more to do with relating. But the 5th house is also a time where you can glow up your talents, your abilities. So although the moon is in the precise Virgo in terms of your sign, it really reflects a more Leonian energy. So there's a lot to like there, isn't there? Except that when the moon and the sun are in opposition, essentially the sun and its co-pilot Saturn, which is just on its shoulder, is potentially being a very inhibiting and limiting energy to the moon. So what can we take from this? Well, if you have a romantic relationship at the moment that seems to be going nowhere fast, this is an eclipse which is asking you to do something about it. And because the solar eclipse, which is coming on the 29th of March, is in a very psychological part of your scope and one that can be to do with endings, and you have Venus, your ruler, in that sector already, if there are some anxieties about someone's truthfulness, trustworthiness, loyalty, they are going to be shown by this event, unfortunately. But the 11th house, where the Sun and Saturn are, is about that future. And if you don't feel that that future is very strong, by delaying the decision of what to do may not be in your best interest. So in a way, this eclipse, challenging though it can be, if you aren't feeling particularly content romantically, can concentrate your thinking on what's good for you long term. Now, it could be that you're attracted to someone that you actually really, really like, and you're not necessarily expecting a long-term future with them, but that isn't necessarily helping you, because if you are involved with someone and it's more of a fling or it's more transactional, it's stopping you getting someone who's really going to be good for your soul. So just be conscious of that, because the energy of Pisces is very much about the soul. Another takeout with this is if there are certain friendships which are not perhaps as nurturing and as positive as they could fall to one side over the next half year. In fact, I feel that some people have made way even over the last 2 years, with Saturn being in the sign of Pisces, and you may have gone through some intense disappointments, because the 11th house, where the Sun and Saturn are, along with the North Node and Neptune, is very much about your highest hopes. It can be about fortune. It can be about where we aspire above the physical and practical domain, but having Saturn there is a very mighty thing to contend with. So at times where perhaps you've been a tad too optimistic, or perhaps a tad too trusting, or seeing the best in people, you may have experienced some more salutary lessons, and that hasn't been easy to deal with. The other thing I would think you could consider with this particular event is when you're trying to work out the balance of time you spend with different people, because in some ways a full moon and the lunar eclipse between the 5th and the 11th houses is asking us to be conscious that a lot of people may want a piece of us, and of course we can't please all of the people all of the time. So again, Saturn's there saying, look, you need to set your boundary, which could feel uncomfortable, but it's something you may feel you need to do. But it's not all bad, Taurus, for you, because Uranus in your sign links well to the Sun and also Saturn. And of course, therefore, it links well to the moon as well, just in a different way. So if you're prepared to flow through the sextile to the Sun and Saturn, or you're prepared to be much more radical in trying different things, Uranus applying to the moon, freshening things up, being more open-minded, not sticking with just what you know, you can turn this event into a much more constructive opportunity for you. But staying exactly as you are, if you're not completely fulfilled, either romantically, socially, around friends, or your long-term future, is not going to be an option, I'm afraid. please check out my new website at patrickarundel.com. There's loads of goodies, a brilliant free birth chart. You won't get a better one anywhere, in my humble opinion. You can sign up for your free daily written horoscope fired to your device each day. You can get your free tarot. It's an amazing free tarot. Or also sign up for your free daily moon horoscope. Please go to www.patrickarundel.com. So Gemini, the position of the moon is in the part of your chart to do with your environment, your home, your immediate feelings. It can also be to do with our internal world. So that's how we perceive things, our sense of stability and security. And therefore, the fact that the Sun and Saturn are directly opposite the Moon suggests there could be some pressures that are heading your way over the next 6 months professionally that could have an impact on that home and feeling of serenity. But it may be because you're going to choose to put yourself under pressure, because having that cluster of energy in the sign of Pisces, but particularly on the Sun position with Saturn, suggests if you are wanting to raise your profile, seize the limelight, go for some goals, the chances are you're going to be very hardworking and dedicated in order to achieve that. But just be conscious that Uranus continues in your 12th house, creating a lot of nervous energy. Now, it's possible you could have some brainwaves, particularly around where to live or how to live, reorganizing things around perhaps working from home, or perhaps going for a job that gives you a bit more personal space, because Uranus aspects so well to the Sun, the position of Saturn, but also back to the position of the Moon. However, there are potential challenges ahead, because the position of Mercury in this particular illustration, your ruler, is also in your 11th house along with Venus. So that's a more social dimension. But you may find that that part of your life is in some ways choked up by the amount of things you may need to get through. So some of the scenarios that I feel could play out with this particular eclipse: you may decide to move, you may decide to improve, you may have someone leave home, return home, you may need to look out for someone who's older in terms of their personal care and their welfare, such as a relative. It may be that your home has some issues that will need some attention. For example, repairs, renewals. It may be that if you work from home, that actually starts to close in on the amount of peace and tranquility you get as an individual, or if you're in a family, collectively. It's not necessarily going to be a breeze. Also, if you do work in an organization which is much more traditional, much more structured, and perhaps more hierarchical, that won't necessarily work so well for you, and that could start to feel rather oppressive for you, because the position of Saturn on the Sun suggests that some demands are coming your way. So whatever your personal circumstances, this is going to be a bit of a juggle between what you want to do in terms of your connection to the world and what you want to maintain and make sure is safe in terms of your inner home or family life. There could be some family politics for some Geminis, to be honest. There may be someone close to you who's not necessarily going to buy into an idea you have. Maybe it's that person who tends to give us kind of faint praise, but really what they're expressing is their disapproval. It could be someone who's a little unyielding, not so modern in their approach. You may come into some politics with people who see things very differently to you, and the resistance could potentially be very strong. So how do you make the most of this? Well, I would say whatever you're trying professionally, worldly wise, if you're doing voluntary work in your local community, if you are taking on more responsibility for youngsters or older family members, it is going to be important not to neglect your inner personal needs. please check out my new website at patrickarundel.com. There's loads of goodies, a brilliant free birth chart. You won't get a better one anywhere, in my humble opinion. You can sign up for your free daily written horoscope fired to your device each day. You can get your free tarot. It's an amazing free tarot. Or also sign up for your free daily moon horoscope. Please go to www.patrickarundel.com. So Cancer, this lunar eclipse, which features of course your ruler the moon, accentuates communications. In the third house, where the moon is, very much about those quick exchanges. Now that can be jolly interactions on a daily basis, but in a more meaningful way it can be our emotional connections to neighbours, to siblings, our community, but also our beliefs, but how we articulate and express them. And the third house is a very Gemini type influence, even though the host is Virgo. Virgo is about precision. Gemini is about being very dexterous and having quick repartee. But on the other side of the heavens is the position of the sun in the ninth house. That's about higher ideals, philosophy, the law. And having Saturn close by means that anything you express quickly over the next 6 months, which doesn't quite chime, could have some kind of consequence. So, for example, if you do have ideas which are not necessarily agreeable to someone you encounter, there could be some resistance. The ninth house can also be about contracts, the law, travel. So those areas are where the quick communication of the moon is a potential challenge to you. So it's about slowing things down and relying on your core Cancerian energies of just making sure things feel right. Because if you get caught up in the debate, it could at times end up being rather bruising. But also, I feel that if you are trying to publish something, or you're trying to reach people with a philosophy that's important to you, you're going to take what you have to say very seriously. That's not a bad thing, but it may mean that that ups the stakes in terms of the information you get fed back to you. So if you are working in an environment which could be to do with, say, the technical sphere, it may be to do with media, it could be to do with publishing, websites, anything to do with the travel industry. I just feel it's a time for you to be as mindful as possible about the way you express yourself, particularly because Mars in your sign is perhaps making you a bit more outspoken, a bit more inclined to say it as it is, which is not a bad thing, but you may find that someone who has perhaps a more conservative view of a situation, or has some kind of power over the situation, may push back against whatever you express quickly. So a time to think, express, travel in a very mindful way. Keep that mindfulness going for the next 6 months. Please check out my new website at patrickarundel.com. There's loads of goodies, a brilliant free birth chart. You won't get a better one anywhere, in my humble opinion. You can sign up for your free daily written horoscope fired to your device each day. You can get your free tarot. It's an amazing free tarot. Or also sign up for your free daily moon horoscope. Please go to www.patrickarundel.com. So Leo, for you, the position of the moon is in the second house. Now, the second house is our immediate life foundations, can be our approach to values and our self-worth, but also it can be about everyday money. On the other side of the heavens, the sun, very close to Saturn, is where you have to connect to others. Because Saturn's there, it may be a big institution that has some kind of impact on the money coming into your situation. Now that could be a bank, it could be a savings or pension scheme, it could be anything to do with long-term stocks and shares and investments. Put Saturn in there, you've got to potentially expect that things could trim down, that there could be some headwinds that you're going to experience. But the headwinds could be actually because you're connected to someone in a more personal context, a close, intimate relationship where their values don't align with yours. So that's something that could come up the next 6 months. Equally, it could be because of the change of, say, an interest rate that affects the cost of borrowing, or it may be that your yield on one of those saving products isn't as handsome because Saturn creates limitation. What Saturn therefore pushes you to do is to be as prudent as possible in taking the everyday situation, the moon, into how you translate that into your longer term planning. It's asking you not to be too flamboyant. However, there is a challenge to that, but not necessarily in a bad way, and it comes from Uranus. Ironically, because Saturn is very much about conservatism and Uranus can be very much about being much more enterprising, they're engaged in a very good alliance. So if you wanted to do something different, particularly with your work, but you were prepared to approach it with a degree of an open mind, being a bit more entrepreneurial, but at the same time going through some rigorous checks and balances. So make sure, for example, you write out a good business plan, you do your research, you get some good advice. Doing something different wouldn't in itself see a failure. But I think Saturn does suggest that if you are working with others, just be aware that their responses might not always be what you'd really like. It's just where things are. It's been in this vein for the last 2 years for you, but because Saturn is so close to this event, if there is anything that needs shaking out that's a bit weak, it could show up over this period of time. But the solar eclipse, which is coming later in March, does give you the opportunity, even if something did end, is to actually break out and do something much more devil may care. And if you did that, surprisingly, even if something does come to a close, another celestial door could open. Another area that could show up over this event as well, Leo, is if you're in a long-term, a romantic relationship where you feel starved of closeness. Now, the best closeness I would imagine is a hug. But sometimes people find even those kind of levels of intimacy challenging. But if you're someone who really wants your sexual relationship, for example, or your spiritual relationship to be very much more involved and very much more devoted, and there's someone who just always wants to keep it as it is, the status quo, you don't really feel any growth, that could be something that you reflect very strongly on too over the next few months. Equally, if you're footloose and fancy 3, the 8th house energy suggests that if you do encounter someone, you may encounter someone who's got quite an energy about them. It could be quite mesmeric, but in some ways it could feel challenging. But that might be a good thing to try to interact with, because through it you could grow. So if you do encounter someone who seems a bit formidable, then maybe that's not such a bad thing if you ended up with a much more equal relationship. Please check out my new website at patrickarundel.com. There's loads of goodies, a brilliant free birth chart. You won't get a better one anywhere, in my humble opinion. You can sign up for your free daily written horoscope fired to your device each day. You can get your free tarot. It's an amazing free tarot. Or also sign up for your free daily moon horoscope. Please go to www.patrickarundel.com. So Virgo, for you, this is your personal moon position. The sun on the other side of the heavens, along with Saturn, is asking you about your relationships. But relationships start with ourselves. They're not just about romantic interactions. Saturn in the 7th house over the last couple of years has been asking you to get clearer about what you don't want to put up with as much as what you will be sincere and committed to. Saturn's not all one direction. It's not all bad. It could be that someone really significant has come into your world, or you have become much more conscious of what's not quite right in an existing relationship, where if you're single, how some of your own personal needs haven't quite been met by someone you've encountered yet. So the next 6 months is asking you to be very applied to how you interact with other people. And because Uranus is pushing you to be open-minded, the more you do stay attuned to different types of ideas or people or even spaces. So traveling somewhere you've not been before, connecting in different interest groups in ways that are fresh, you may encounter someone who's completely different to who you would have ever considered before, but it could turn out to be an extremely positive interaction. Of course, having Saturn opposite the moon does suggest in an existing relationship, if not everything is running as smoothly as it could, and particularly if you do have some direct Virgo energy from about 22 to 25 degrees, or you have Pisces energy at 22 to 25 degrees, or on the two angles, so in terms of Gemini and also Sagittarius, you may feel this event a lot more keenly. But it's asking you really to have a very realistic understanding of what other people expect, what you're prepared to give. It's not just about what we need in relationships, and it can be hard for people to step outside their personal thinking to see that other people may have a different approach, different perspectives, and that's really what you're being asked to consider at this time. But of course, partnerships or relationships of all kinds are not limited to the romantic sphere. So if you work somewhere where you don't particularly like some of your colleagues, co-workers, even people you have to sort of compete against in the team, if it isn't really working for you, do consider a change over the next 6 months, because the moon in your sign is asking you in a way to get more in touch with what you really need, and that is not a bad thing. Please check out my new website at patrickarundel.com. There's loads of goodies, a brilliant free birth chart. You won't get a better one anywhere, in my humble opinion. You can sign up for your free daily written horoscope fired to your device each day. You can get your free tarot. It's an amazing free tarot. Or also sign up for your free daily moon horoscope. Please go to www.patrickarundel.com. So Libra, this moon position for you is in the 12th house. The 12th house can be very tender indeed. The position of the Sun and Saturn is in the 6th house. If you are someone who's been very, very disciplined and giving your absolute everything to a situation, it could be a job, it could be a relationship, it could be supporting someone who's not had it easy, because the position of Pisces can be about sacrifice, but the 6th house for you is about where the practical effort goes in, the attention to detail. If you like, in a way, the reverse, because it's a bit Virgoian. Whereas the 12th house energy of the moon could be about the areas of a situation you're reluctant to look at, the shadow side of yourself or of others or a person or a work environment which doesn't quite chime with you. Having Saturn in your 6th house by the Sun suggests that if your physical vitality feels low, it's possible over the next 6 months that the reasons for that could be in some ways to do with your psychological, emotional and spiritual health and well-being. So a chance to really work at things. But if you do work in an environment, or you're very giving at home domestically, and you're the person who always takes on that extra chore, this is time to try and get a better balance. It's not all about give, it's all about making sure that what you give is proportionate to what you've really got available. If you're giving more in any situation than you've really got available, that's what you should be thinking carefully about, bringing into a better trim. And of course, getting in better balance for you is a big, big thing. But if there are people you work with or have to coordinate things with who are not necessarily on your side, someone's picky criticisms could be something that becomes quite an issue. So just be conscious of office politics and someone is not quite as open as they might be, because If there is any opposition going on, they're not necessarily going to be manifesting it in an upfront way, particularly with your ruler Venus and Mercury in your 7th house, along with the ascendant on this event. Superficially, everything could seem hunky-dory, but actually there could be some discontent that's washing around in the background. So watch out for anyone who tends to be a bit two-faced and someone who tends to play games and enjoys those office machinations, which actually can be very, very damaging. So trust is something you should only give and invest in situations where you're really sure. Please check out my new website at patrickarundel.com. There's loads of goodies, a brilliant free birth chart. You won't get a better one anywhere, in my humble opinion. You can sign up for your free daily written horoscope fired to your device each day. You can get your free tarot. It's an amazing free tarot. Or also sign up for your free daily moon horoscope. Please go to www.patrickarundel.com. So, Scorpio, you may find over the next half year that quite a few people seem to want a piece of you, which can be very flattering. Romantically, for example, if you're single, maybe someone through your friendship circle or your interest is going to show up as being a potential a love interest. But because Saturn's so close to the Sun in your 5th house, whatever your situation, there could be some strings attached. Maybe that person lives a little way away. Maybe their family situation doesn't give them an awful amount of time to be more playful and spend time in your company. Perhaps in an existing relationship, your need to spend a bit more time on your own interests and friendships is something that a partner may be resistant to, which could create a sense that you're feeling a little bit hemmed in. That said, Uranus being in your 7th house, intersecting with this event in a very constructive way, could give you the strategies to actually create a little bit of space but keep people on side. I also feel that if your personal creativity is really strong and you haven't really given or had the space to really given those talents quite as much time as you would like, having Saturn next to the Sun suggests that over the next half year, really work hard at showing people just how incredibly talented you are, because you could get a real reward from it. But that old saying, we can't keep all of the people happy all of the time, does come up for me a little bit. And with your modern ruler, Pluto emphasizing your emotions, and Mars giving you your traditional ruler giving you a completely other need to break free of anything that doesn't quite work. If there is a friendship or love relationship or interest which is proving to be ungratifying, you may be looking to seek the door marked exit. Please check out my new website at patrickarundel.com. There's loads of goodies, a brilliant free birth chart. You won't get a better one anywhere, in my humble opinion. You can sign up for your free daily written horoscope fired to your device each day. You can get your free tarot. It's an amazing free tarot. Or also sign up for your free daily moon horoscope. Please go to www.patrickarundel.com. Sagittarius, it's going to be difficult for you to disguise how you feel about any situation over the next 6 months, but that doesn't need to be a bad thing. If you're feeling jolly, upbeat and positive, the moon at the top of your chart will help you to radiate that out to all. It's just that Saturn and the Sun in an intense relationship in your 4th house suggests that that might not be as easy as it sounds. Saturn on the 4th house could mean that there's going to be some extra family responsibilities. Perhaps your home needs some repairs. If you work from home, it may be difficult to concentrate. Perhaps you're being called to work back at the office, which doesn't quite suit you. If you don't have the space that's very important to Sagittarius, that could be a factor too. Something around your home and emotional situation does suggest it could be a little limiting for you over the next 6 months. What can help you is Uranus. Uranus has been quite the challenge over the last 5 years or so. It may have made life very unstructured and a bit chaotic at times, but on this event it could provide some solutions. So that means even if you feel challenged by your connection to the world, the moon, or home, family and emotional issues, the sun and Saturn, Uranus suggests looking at things in a fresh way could tease into play a solution that you may not have quite thought of before, and actually it could prove to be just the proverbial ticket. Please check out my new website at patrickarundel.com. There's loads of goodies, a brilliant free birth chart. You won't get a better one anywhere, in my humble opinion. You can sign up for your free daily written horoscope fired to your device each day. You can get your free tarot. It's an amazing free tarot. Or also sign up for your free daily moon horoscope. Please go to www.patrickarundel.com. Capricorn, having the opposition between your ruler Saturn and the moon, suggests that the way you express yourself could be received by someone else in a little bit of a cool way. Maybe they see you as being a bit perfunctory, maybe blunt, maybe a bit sharp, maybe a bit stubborn. That's how it could feel to them. You may not intend that at all. Equally, if you have to think about something or structure something, for example, something to do with higher education where you have to write a thesis or a presentation or a business plan, you could do it with aplomb over the next 6 months, because the sun in the conjunction with your ruler opposite the moon will give you both the ability to think outwards, the moon, but also make sure that the detail that you're writing down will be well structured in a way which makes it very readable and understandable. The third house can also be about short journeys. So the ninth house, longer journeys. If you are going to go on any journey, don't rush it, particularly with Uranus in the mix. Uranus is going to give you, as it has done for some while, an occasional need to just do things very much off the cuff. Why not? That sounds fun. And therefore you could make a travel plan and make it happen very, very fast, and that could prove to be very stimulating. I just feel that when it comes to your emotional situation, Chiron clashing with Mars in your opposite sign, if there is communications going on within the family, patience will be really important. So I think it's a case of choosing words carefully. If you're traveling anywhere, doing your planning meticulously. If you are going to present something, you will do it very well, I feel. But there could be some cooling off around certain relationships, possibly with a neighbour, maybe a sibling. If you rush communications, or perhaps you think everyone to sort of comply very much to your view of a situation, that's because of Mars in your 7th house. So just be mindful of the power of words and the power of your language and how you express things. Please check out my new website at patrickarundel.com. There's loads of goodies, a brilliant free birth chart. You won't get a better one anywhere, in my humble opinion. You can sign up for your free daily written horoscope fired to your device each day. You can get your free tarot. It's an amazing free tarot. Or also sign up for your free daily moon horoscope. Please go to www.patrickarundel.com. So Aquarius, the foundations of your situation come sharply into focus with this particular eclipse, because Saturn, your traditional ruler, so close to the sun, is asking you to make sure that those foundations are well established, and then if you're building something up, it's going to be sustainable. The other side of the heavens, the position of the moon, can be shared resources, can also be to do with emotional and spiritual transformation. The second house can be to do with our values. If you're a bit rigid in terms of your values, or quite comfortable with what you have, in a way your modern ruler Uranus, forging a positive angle to the sun and Saturn, but also the moon, is asking you to be a bit more open-minded to looking at different ways of appraising situations. I feel that with Venus and Mercury in your third house, your message can get out. But if you are discussing any kind of financial or contractual matters, you might not necessarily get everything you want. I'm just being really truthful here because obviously I am an Aquarius as well, that there could be some limitations to work within, but not limitations you can't work with. You just need to be conscious of what they are. And that could feel a little bit confining and frustrating. But remember, it's not long now until you get that superb solar eclipse at 8 degrees in Aries on the 29th of March, and that will provide a very, very different pulse. But this one is just saying from now until then particularly, make sure you're being very shrewd, wise and sensible with resources, but a more expansive period is coming very soon. Please check out my new website at patrickarundel.com. There's loads of goodies, a brilliant free birth chart. You won't get a better one anywhere, in my humble opinion. You can sign up for your free daily written horoscope fired to your device each day. You can get your free tarot. It's an amazing free tarot. Or also sign up for your free daily moon horoscope. Please go to www.patrickarundel.com. Pisces, so this eclipse occurs in your opposite sign, the 7th house. Do you know, the moon is lovely in the 7th house of a natal chart because it gives a person an ability to attune skillfully and diplomatically and create harmony with the other side. It's just that because Saturn is so close to your sun, if you're feeling a lot of life pressure, a lot of demands on you, and your physical vitality's on the low side, that can affect even the best of relationships. But you are being encouraged on this particular event to try and keep a balance, try to keep that equilibrium in place. So even if you do feel up against it a little bit, don't necessarily automatically see that someone you're needing to collaborate with doesn't get your circumstance. They may have their own demands and strains as well. So just rehearse in your mind some of the things that can come up, whether you're negotiating something or you're trying to get a fairer balance between who does and contributes what. It would be easy with the sun conjoining with Saturn to see your glass as being half empty, whereas the moon just reminds you to keep trying to find that point of contact, that point of harmony, to keep the lines of communication open. And that will definitely be something that is a constructive way to approach things. Now, if you're in a relationship where you are under a lot of pressure in your work and so forth, and the partner seems very unconnected to you, spun out in their own dimension and space, no amount of diplomacy on your part is going to make that right, and that could therefore make you very resentful. If you are looking for a relationship, I think it's important to be honest and own exactly what your limitations are. So if you don't really want to see someone that's a little way away in distance, or you've got children, or your work is important to you, just say it out straight from the off. It will save everyone a lot of grief. But equally, having the moon in your 7th house could make you aware that there are some people that however much you try to tune into their needs, what you've got available may never suit them enough. And that could be through work, it could be through friendships, and that can be frustrating, especially if you're doing your best. And that could be a little bit of a challenge. But with Uranus in your 3rd house linking very well to both the moon, the sun and Saturn, if you do need to say your side of things and find the right words, I think your ability to actually maybe express an overview of what's going on in a way which gets people to take notice. I think your energy can just have an electricity about it, which could be very helpful to any dialogue that's important over the next half year. Thank you so much for having joined me for this lunar eclipse special. Please keep an eye out for my solar eclipse special, which is coming soon. If you've yet to watch your March deep dive monthly horoscope videos, please see the link below for more. And please do check out my new website at www.patrickarundel.com with all those amazing goodies to share with you.